The bits are flying through the internet. The Periscope warning is on. That's good. All right. 19. All right. That looks pretty good. Let's see if we can come back. All right. That's good. We're back, folks. I'm Charlie from Red Blue Talk. I'm a small-time streamer. I have this internet thing. I have to admit, I'm trying to figure it out. There's like a million bobs and widgets you got to know about to do a successful live stream. I'm trying to pull it together. I had a technical difficulty, and shame on me because the same exact thing happened last week. But I think I understand what's causing it, and I'm trying to improve. So we are definitely live on Facebook, on Periscope, and I'm going to double check YouTube. The YouTube stream looks good, so we are well oriented by 3 on the internet, and I apologize if you couldn't hear me before, but this audio should be getting out. I'd like to confirm if somebody could send up a heart, or just I could monitor it myself. Check. Oh yeah, that sounds good. So Periscope, everybody's getting audio, everybody's getting video, everybody's happy. I'm Charlie Stern. This is Red Blue Talk. It's another Saturday evening. My channel is all about how politics and government impact people's lives. It's impacting my life this week because there's a state Senate campaign that's hot and heavy where I live. It's the 34th Senate District of New York State. My state senator is this guy. His name is Jeff Klein. He's the incumbent. And this one's getting a lot of attention because it turns out that this particular state senator had his own conference in the New York State Senate. It's been widely written about, called the Independent Democratic Conference. He's a Democrat. But in New York, we had until last April, we had 3 conferences in the state Senate. A lot of people didn't like that. It was something that was not widely understood or even talked about for a very long time because no one cared. In 2016, all that changed. The left became very active. They came to understand that there was a coalition government in Albany, and they didn't like it. So now we have a number of races, not just Jeff Klein. There were 8 members of the former IDC, and I should explain that the IDC actually dissolved and dismantled in April of 2018, and all 8 of its members joined the mainstream Democratic Conference. This state senator, Jeff Klein, became the deputy conference leader of the Democratic Conference, reporting to Andrea Stewart Cousins. Senator Cousins is the leader of the Senate Democratic Conference. And by the way, she's endorsed Jeff Klein. So notwithstanding, the 8 members of the former IDC are facing primary elections, and some of them are pretty hot and heavy. There have been a number of endorsements. New York Times has endorsed a couple of these folks, and my email box is filling up with literature like you can't believe. So I want to talk about some of that literature right now. Now, with that background out of the way, let me explain some of the dynamics of this particular race, Klein versus Biaggi. So let me swing over here and show you some stuff. So this is the financial disclosure summary of Alessandra Biaggi. She has raised in 2018 $504,000. This is the summary of monies raised in 2018 by Senator Jeff Klein, $1.251 million. So about 2.5 times as much as the challenger. Notwithstanding, $504,000 is a stunning amount of money for an upstart challenger who has never run for office before to raise. It's amazing. Money has rushed in small amounts from all over the country to support this woman's candidacy. Financially, very successful campaign. Notwithstanding, she's outspent 2.5 to 1. But if she is successful in the primary, Klein could end up still being on the ballot, and he would have an amazing war chest to carry him through November. So we'll have to see how that turns out. So let's look at the email or the postal mail that I've been getting. I'm looking in the wrong place. Let me look at the postal mail that I've been getting. So I'm going to start out with this one. So here's a picture of Jeff Klein. He's showing up at the front door of two very well-dressed people, and this particular mailing is all about the village of Pelham, or the town of Pelham and Pelham Manor, which I should point out happens to be where his opponent resides, which is a community just north of the Bronx. So, Senator Klein, together we can fight back against Trump. So, a lot of anti-Trump talk in these, both from both candidates. But this one is focused on Pelham, and I assume that there's a card or a mailer similar to this one for other areas of the state Senate district. I'm hoping that the audio's still working, everybody's still happy. All right, good. Thank you for joining, Jamel and Jamie. I appreciate that. I appreciate the thumbs up. Let me know if audio sounds okay. I had a technical difficulty before, but I think we're back now. And thank you, Victor Law, for the thumbs up. So, when you're a state senator, one of the things that you're expected to do is get things done in your district. Obviously, you're there for the greater good. You're there to support all of New York State and the objectives and the things that people want to see happen. Broadly, the ideological things are important, but what's also important are things like camera systems, which Jeff Klein got $100,000 for the Pelham Manor camera systems. He got $674,000 for construction of a village green and memorial garden in Wolf's Lane Park. $100,000 for the Pelham School District Chromebooks. My kid has one of those Chromebooks. These are the kinds of earmarks and budgetary items that having a powerful state senator can make an enormous difference. So the second piece of literature, this one was actually not sent out by a candidate. It was sent out by 32BJ SEIU, which is a labor union political action committee, and they've sent this out on behalf of Alessandra Biaggi. So let me take a moment and say that, thank you, Jamie. In addition to the money that the candidates raise individually, it's possible for other organizations to spend money on their behalf, whether the candidate likes it or not. So this literature, on one side, it says Alessandra Biaggi is the real Democrat. And on the other side, Jeff Klein is a fake Democrat. And look, there's a picture of him. It sure looks like a picture of him with President Trump. I'm not clear that that's a authentic picture, but it looks more to me like two separate pictures where one was superimposed upon the other. I'm not sure. They don't exactly look like they're not looking in the exact same direction. Jeff Klein is lit differently than President Trump. They've got different expressions. So I'm not sure that the picture is authentic, which of course does not reflect well on the message. So there's another piece of literature. This one has to do with health care, and it was not sent out by the campaign. It was sent out by New Yorkers for Quality Health Care. Vote September 13, because Jeff Klein has the experience to fight Trump's attacks on health care and a woman's right to choose. Jeff Klein is the experienced leader to protect us from Trump's attacks. And then, of course, it's got pictures of Senator Klein talking to people. So there's that. So this next one, I think, is very significant. Alessandra Biaggi, who, again, is the challenger, who has never run for office before, is challenging a multi-term powerful incumbent. She managed to get the endorsement of the New York Times. The New York Times. That is no small thing. She had to sit down with the editorial board at some point and convince them that she was worthy of that. So let's take a quick look. Where am I here? Let's just swing over to here and here. So the New York Times actually endorsed several people in that same editorial. Beyond the chance to shake things up in Washington, this fall's elections present voters with the opportunity to support reformers around the country who are out to change the political climate from the ground up. Well, you mean every election is an opportunity to support reformers if there's a reformer running, but the New York Times never liked the Independent Democratic Conference. You would occasionally see an article about it prior to 16, and it wasn't really a front and center issue, but they never liked it. And when they got the opportunity to support some people who were making that their central issue, they went affirmative for it. So they supported Alessandra Biaggi in opposition to Jeff Klein, Zelnor Myrie, who was running against Jesse Hamilton, and Jessica Ramos, who was running for the state Senate against Jose Peralta. Peralta and Hamilton obviously were both former IDCers. All right, let me swing back here. So another piece of literature, this one says Alessandra Biaggi lies about Jeff Klein. I mean, there's so many of these documents, I don't know what you want to call them, campaign ads. They're basically, a lot of them are about truth versus false and real versus fake, and this sort of, quest for authenticity. So this one says, let's set the record straight. Alessandra Biaggi is challenging Senator Klein. September 13th, Miss Biaggi has been on the attack, spreading false information. It's bad enough when Republicans employ alternative facts, but it's truly disturbing when a progressive resorts to these tactics. And then he proceeds to provide some specifics. So Klein never voted for a Republican leader in Albany, nor has he ever caucused with the Republicans ever. That is true. The conference, it wasn't a caucus, it was a conference. It says here, Jeff voted for the SAFE Act, marriage equality, which is same-sex marriage, $15 minimum wage, and the Immigrant Defense Fund, paid family leave, and every piece of progressive legislation in recent New York history. And I would point out he did all that while the Republicans had a numerical majority in the state Senate. So there is another way of looking at this, that the coalition government was very effective during a time of considerable corruption in Albany. Dazzling nonsense is still nonsense. A state judge ordered an independent. This is all about. There was okay. So this requires a little bit of explanation. There was a Senate Independence Campaign Committee which raised a bucket of money, and it was all for the IDC candidates. A state judge ordered an Independence Party campaign committee to change its committee officers, and they complied. The judge did not order campaign contributions to be returned, and those monies ended up in the campaign of each of the individual members of the former IDC. And that is in part why Klein has a significant war chest, as does each of the other candidates. Marisol Alcantara got some, and Jesse Hamilton got some, and Jose Peralta got some, and the rest of them. So then there's this mailing here. This is a negative piece that was sent out by the committee to elect Alessandra Biaggi, and it says that you have to take what Jeff Klein says with a grain of salt. Just checking to make sure we still have audio, and we do. Okay, grain of salt. So what are we doing with all the salt? You're supposed to take what he says with an entire salt shaker. And she reprints a letter, which I actually read during my live stream last week, that Jeff Klein wrote. This one could actually backfire, because if you're a Klein supporter, it reminds you of certain things that Klein said in his email or his postal mail from last week, but it never very specifically refutes anything that he says. He says here, I have never voted for a Republican to lead the state Senate. And that was a true statement. I have never given Republicans the majority to run the state Senate. Also true. I've never blocked one piece of progressive legislation. And then she points out and just says, Klein is sending mailings to voters trying to pretend it never happened. So it's not clear what she's saying that he's saying is untrue. I kind of have to take issue with this one. She explains what happens, but editorializes that Klein's alliance with Republicans in Albany has been chronicled by every newspaper in the city and state, and even national publications like the Washington Post. But it doesn't say that they said it was necessarily bad. And so its consequences for Democratic priorities, whether it's denying full funding for our public schools, blocking passage of the DREAM Act and the Reproductive Health Act, or leaving tenants vulnerable to loopholes in our rent laws that Klein himself promises to fix. It's just not clear. She says he's lying. So then this next one, this was sent out by a committee to elect Alessandra Biaggi, and it's also a negative campaign ad. And it deals with Jeff Klein's law firm having represented this individual whose name is Tom Bazergian. Tom Bazergian was a 9/11 rescue and recovery worker. And what she's alleging here, and this one was really hard. I had to sit down and parse through what this one was trying to say. What she's saying in this literature here is that Klein's firm charged 9/11, what Jeff Klein's firm charged 9/11 first responders is now against the law. But you got to parse through what happened in this case very, very carefully to understand what's going on. It's a big headline. How could he? Well, here's what actually happened. Outside of his work in the state Senate, Klein has a law firm, as many people who are in the state Senate have other jobs. Klein, Calderoni, and Santucci tried to take a shocking 25% of these first responders' health settlements for themselves. Here's what this was about. It was hard to find it online. There's not a lot of information, but I did find a website that had a readout of the judge's decision in this lawsuit. Klein's firm sued this guy because he got $65,000 as a result of the 9/11 fund that was paying money to rescue and recovery workers awarded him $65,000. Then this guy Bazergian apparently went to, he didn't get what he felt he was entitled to. He got $65,000, he wanted more. So he hired this law firm. The law firm was successful and got him over $200,000, almost over 3 times as much. That's not mentioned anywhere in the card, however. When he got the $205,000 or $204,000 settlement, there was a dispute over what he owed the attorneys. That's what this lawsuit was all about, and it got worked out in court. So this one is a little bit thin, in my opinion. I just don't see what exact campaign issue that deals with, and it's very hard to understand, and that the campaign is providing incomplete facts on that one because they just are. So then there's this one. This is a nicely put together piece here that says, I'm running for the state Senate on ideas, forward-looking Democratic agenda, and that Republicans have blocked ideas that I'm running for, quote, I'm running for state Senate on ideas and on a forward-looking Democratic agenda that Republicans have for too long blocked. It's time for real Democrats and real change in Albany, and then she signs it. And then the back of the card lists some of the people who have endorsed her. She's got an endorsement from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Scott Stringer, Lisa Copeland from Mount Vernon, some Westchester County politicians. And then she's got little logos here for 32BJ, Communications Workers of America, a couple of Planned Parenthood groups, a Teamsters organization, a Sierra Club, and some others. And then on the inside, it's a tremendous document. On the inside of this mailer, she calls out some specific issues. Single-payer health care, which, as we've determined from the earlier message, the New York Health Act, which she supports, is also supported by Senator Klein. She supports reproductive freedom. I've heard her speak, and she wants to address certain gaps in the law in New York State that would be the fallback if Roe versus Wade and the subsequent decisions were overturned by the Supreme Court. And then at the bottom, there's this little thin strip here at the bottom. It's a little hard to see, but I'm going to hold it up, see if you can. Let's see if you can see that. Come on, focus. Where are you? And I'll just read it to you. It's a little hard to see. 3 things to know about Alessandra. 1, she's a 4th-generation resident of the district, but she doesn't mention that she lives in Pelham Manor, not in the Bronx, part of that district. And the fourth generation, well, 2 generations ago, her grandfather was Mario Biaggi, who was arguably one of the most corrupt politicians in the history of New York State. And her father or John Biaggi, I'm not sure if that's her father, and Mario Biaggi went to prison. 2, she graduated from our public schools and Fordham Law School. That is true, but she doesn't mention that those public schools were in Pelham, not in the Bronx. And 3, Alessandra has already had significant government experience serving as Assistant General Counsel in the Office of Storm Recovery, and most recently, Women's Policy in the Governor Cuomo's counsel's office. So there's pretty good coverage of what she's about there. And then finally, the last piece, I saved this one for last because I think it's a message that both campaigns can benefit from, which is don't forget to vote September 13th. And this one comes from New Yorkers for Quality Health Care. New York State Senator Klein is the healthcare champion. We need to protect, strengthen our hospitals, require insurance companies to cover pre-existing conditions like cancer, and protect the women's right to choose. And it's a picture of smiling Jeff, reminding you to vote on Thursday, September 13. That's it. That's what showed up in the mail just this week. Now, this is the last weekend before the election, so I assume that the email and the postal mail and all that stuff will slow down a bit. The Biaggi campaign has a very strong web and digital component to it. These guys know what they're doing. Klein is on Twitter as well. So there's no shortage of places to get information about these campaigns. Get out there and vote. So listen, if you managed to make it to the end of this thing, let me just check here, see what people are talking about. Good. Thank you very much, everybody that tuned in. I most sincerely appreciate that. I'm going to continue to try to do live streams on Saturdays. Seems to be a schedule everybody can deal with. And then, of course, I can play them back and annotate where to log in during the week. Like, follow, you know what to do. This is Red Blue Talk. I'm Charlie Stern. This is all about how politics and government impact people's lives. And remember to get out there and vote on Thursday. And I'll see you on the next video.